are talking Terror on the Prairie. This one is directed by Michael Polish. And this one stars Gina Carano as Hattie McAllister. And this was a movie that was been produced by the right-wing commentators of the Daily Wire. Now, Gina Carano, of course, was on the Disney Plus show The Mandalorian, where she was fired for making kind of more right-wing kind of comments. So the Daily Wire, a right-wing sort of commentator sort of site, picked her up, and they've gone into their kind of entertainment kind of media and making a few films, and thus she's ended up in this Western movie. So what is the story? Well, it focuses on Hattie McAllister, who is a kind of frontier wife living in this kind of remote house with her 2 children, a young boy and a kind of baby girl. Her husband kind of goes into town for some reason or another, and while he's away, the Hattie is visited by 4 outlaws who initially seemed, you know, somewhat kind of ambiguous about what they kind of want and stuff, but we soon know that they have, unlawful intent, and it's up to Hattie to try and fend these guys off. Now, what will happen? You have to watch the movie and find out. So, what do we think about Terror on the Prairie? Okay, so let's talk about what I think works in this movie. I do think this movie is very well shot. It goes for a kind of a grittier kind of style, more grounded Western. And the kind of the property that the McAllisters, his family, are situated on, I think looks fantastic. The way it's kind of built and the way it's filmed, it looks completely kind of isolated. And I think they've done a good job of kind of representing the kind of the time and this kind of this gritty, real grind of a life that people during this kind of period might have had. And that's everything down from, I should say, the sets, the location shooting, the props, the costumes. I think everyone did a great job in regards to kind of that. And the movie does go for this kind of more of a slower paced, sort of unforgiving kind of style, kind of slow movie, dramatic kind of stuff. Although there is a reasonable amount of action, which we'll kind of come on to. I have seen critiques that the movie is just too slow, but I don't know if I agree with that, because the movie is essentially a siege film. And, you know, once we get to the second act, the siege starts, so you don't have to wait too long, I don't think. You get 2/3 of the movie is the siege, and it might not be the kind of the most action-packed style kind of shoot 'em up, because there's not a huge amount of people involved. It's quite localized, but I kind of quite like the fact that it's probably more of a realistic depiction of what kind of that thing might actually look like, with a small amount of people having, you know, shooting out over a kind of a small area. It's not going to be massively kind of like cinematic in some ways. It's going to be a more of a drawn out affair, trying to get the advantage and things like that. It doesn't always work with that, and which we're going to come on to again, but I think the idea was kind of there. I think some of the supporting cast, they do a pretty good job, I've got to say. It's nice to see Matthias Hughes, a kind of a B-movie favourite actor of mine from back in the kind of the VHS days, turns up for a small, if not pointless, role. And there are some kind of like fairly kind of like, you know, good sort of scenes of fighting and violence here when I think it does happen. What doesn't work, I think, unfortunately, Gina Carano isn't the best actress. I thought she was fine in The Mandalorian. I quite liked her in that. But I gotta be honest with you, I think this movie she struggles with. Now, partly because I think the movie's decision was to try and do it as a more of a dramatic style movie rather than kind of an action film. So this really isn't an action film. It's more of a drama with some fighting in it. And I think Carano struggles with any real kind of sense of dramatic chops here. I think she's not particularly the strongest actor. It's something like Star Wars, where she's probably, you know, it's kind of like a lot more kind of takes and things like that. Fine, I think she does perfectly fine there. But here, she doesn't quite deliver on that kind of dramatic front, unfortunately. There's not a lot of plot in this movie. It is. I was surprised when the siege started, and I thought, okay, you know, this is what's happening. Where's the film going to go from here? It kind of doesn't really go anywhere else. It's just kind of that. So I was surprised how little plot there actually is in the movie. We do get a little bit of kind of dialogue, giving us some kind of like some backstory, but essentially what that aspires to is a bunch of kind of exposition drops. So we get, oh, you've wronged me because you've done this, you know. Oh, this happened in our past because I'm going to drop some exposition here. So we get quite a lot of exposition dumps in this movie and not a lot of actual plot, what we kind of see on screen. It may have benefited from having either flashbacks or having, you know, some scenes at the beginning kind of showing you what had happened here. But it ultimately doesn't do that, and so what we do get is a film with very little kind of plot on the actual kind of narrative front, but it kind of it tries to fill in some backstory by just telling you things via kind of exposition dumps. Now, the other thing I would say as well, the other thing that I think deflates some of the kind of the drama from this movie is some just dumb decisions that people make. I don't want to go into too many kind of spoilers or anything like that, but characters on kind of both sides of the kind of like they're good guys, they're the bad guys. Both sides of these characters, I think, do make some questionable decisions. Is the best way I can describe it. They either don't do things or do things that just seem completely kind of illogical, and thinking why have you done that, or why haven't you done this? Why have you gone there? You know, why haven't you kind of taken this opportunity? There's lots of kind of things like that in this movie that I feel just make it a little bit kind of like goofy at times. And again, it wants to go for this kind of gritty drama, and I think you can do that can work, but you've got to have that sort of, I think you've got to lean into the drama and the kind of the realism, which it does aesthetically, but narratively I don't think it kind of works quite as well. There are a couple of sequences as well where I got to be honest with you, I think some of the kind of the choreography was a little bit hit and miss. There's one sequence where someone jumps from a horse. I'm thinking, there's no one's kind of reacting to that before it happens. It's just like, what? So I think this movie has some good aesthetics, it has some good visuals. I think some of the acting from the majority cast is reasonably strong, but unfortunately Carano, who is our main star, is struggling a little bit on these kind of more of a dramatic style role. Maybe, you know, she's better off with straight kind of B-actioners potentially, and I think wrong with that. I love B-actioners, but the dramatic stuff, I'm not sure she can. She's not the right person for it, really. So to me, this movie is kind of watchable if you like kind of a western. I think it's a relatively kind of well-made film. I don't think it's particularly memorable. I don't think it really has much of a kind of a voice of its own. It just kind of feels like, you know, quite a lot of other kind of like B-movie westerns, like get centre screeners and things like that. So to me, it's kind of pretty average in that respect. So it's a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.